Astrahi, Chapter 34, The Building. The building was shaped like a perfect square. The walls were made of stone. The high roof was triangular shaped, and on the right side it had a tiny raised second floor with a bell within it. The floor and the bell tower were made of wood, and the front entrance had one large triangle pointed stained glass window. They showed stylized trees decorated in many colors. The window was surrounded by white stones as well as a small entrance beside the window. Eleanor commented, "I think I hear singing." And within the echoing voices within said, "Eputa Luciane debe apelas nomine vali." "What are those voices singing?" asked Eleanor. He shrugged his shoulders in response. Eleanor looked at his hat and noticed strange decorated letters in one of the laces. She recognized it as the same letters written in the robes that he used to wear. She thought a moment and then she said, "Oh, is it like the language that you speak back home?" He chuckled and said, "Well, technically the language that they speak at home is technically called English, because that was the language spoken by the slaves." "Oh, I see," said Eleanor, not bothering to question further. She didn't like to speak of slaves. And then she added, "Is that why you don't like slaves? But because you used to be one. But wait, you speak English. Are you a descendant of a slave?" And he shrugged his shoulders in response, and then he opened the wooden door. Eleanor decided to dismiss the matter altogether. She knew that slaves were forbidden from owning property or doing whatever they wanted, and she watched as he walked within with a defiant posture. And she decided to follow after him. Once inside, she started to look at the stained glass window at the left hand of the wall, and these showed scenes from the forest. And on the right there were two paintings, and another leading to another room, and an upright piano all close to the end of the room. At the back there was another stained glass window, and this one showed a blonde elf maiden with her hands crossed, and she had a crown of 7 stars, and she wore blue robes, and her right feet was stepping on the head of a snake. And behind her there was a scene of the forest. Aside from the windows, there were interior lights that came from the 5 ceiling lantern. Eleanor's eyes then shifted to several rows of small tables with one cushioned chair, and they covered the further half of the room, and the other half faced the outside door, and overall there were 5 rows of 7 tables. The chairs were filled with a motley crew of different ages, and there were 3 gray adult males, 3 toddler saurians drawing stick figures, and 7 male elven boys, and 7 human girls, and 5 chimpanzees, and 5 baby gorillas, and 1 great girl, and 1 giant toddler child, and 3 dolphin mermaids. He waved and smiled at the conductor, trying to get his attention, and the conductor was wearing a traditional black tuxedo frock coat with white gloves, and he had long black hair tied with a ponytail with a black ribbon, and he wore a monocle on his left eye, though it was debatable if he really needed the monocle or if he was just using it as a fashion statement. The eye with the monocle was silver colored, and the right eye was pitch black. He had a Van Dyke mustache and a beard, and he was in the middle conducting his band with a wand made of grenadilla, with a permabunco handle, and with a silverized string cord and an ebony oar at the bottom of the handle. The conductor continued moving his wand erratically, unaware of his presence, and he had failed to notice that his crew was laughing and whispering, and some were even waving at him in order to get his attention. And he then yelled, "Hi, Amy!" Amy's toy face twisted into a grimace, and this made some of the girls in the back giggle, and when he turned around, he folded his arms and he smiled, and he said, "By the 7 rings of hell, I didn't notice you there, and my little group is truly honored to be graced by an illustrious presence of your powers and mental faculties, or lack thereof." He then gave a mocking, reverent bow, and the class also stood up and did the same, and in a more serious tone, Amy pointed with his wand. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to show Eleanor the class, and she has been spending her time idle since her 12th birthday, and she has spoken of broadening her horizons," explained he. "If the Lord wishes to broaden his horizons, why don't you teach her yourself? You're a man with a myriad of quixotic experiences," sneered Amy, waving his wand in the sky. "I'm not a very good teacher," said he sadly. "That doesn't surprise me," said Amy, hiding the one within his lips. I was getting bored of combat training anyway. And during this exchange, Eleanor had spent her time looking at the stained glass window, and her eyes were fixated on a red crystal slice at an angle. And she drew in closer to look, and when she felt a pat on her shoulder, and she grasped and she turned around, and she breathed a sigh of relief when she saw an adult gray woman standing beside her. And this gray woman wore an elegant white robe, and the woman said to Eleanor, "You should not look at the stained glass too closely. All the crystals used to make here have been inscribed." "What does inscribed mean?" asked Eleanor. "It means that they are cursed," explained the gray. "And why do you have a cursed stained glass window?" "Isn't that asking for trouble?" asked Eleanor, moving away from the window, and she came to stare at the white wall that had no windows. The gray simply shrugged her shoulders in response. The gray followed behind her, and she patted Eleanor's shoulder, and Eleanor turned around and asked, "What's your name?" The gray woman looked at Eleanor from head to toe, and then she said, "My name is Grenadine, and you are Eleanor Praga, his wife." "Am I famous or something?" asked Eleanor, smiling. "You are famous because he is famous among his kind, or should I say infamous," chuckled Grenadine. "How is he famous? Is it because he is bad people, because he is rich, because he was raised by dragons?" "Because he acts odd sometimes," asked Eleanor. She had been wondering about his fame for quite some time. "And he is infamous among his people, for the reasons you mentioned, and we know the real him, and we respect and admire his powers," answered Grenadine, putting her hand on her chest to make more of an emphasis. "It's pretty cool how he can talk to animals. I wish I knew how to do that," pouted Eleanor. "Can the teacher show me how to do that?" Grenadier frowned and said while counting with her fingers, "The conductor only knows astronomy and the liberal arts, and he can't talk with animals. He can talk with black cats, flies, frogs, toads, grasshopper, male ghosts, tigers, deer, venomous snakes, not hunting snakes, and also wolves." Eleanor gave Grenadine a sideways look and said, "That's a pretty short list of animals I can speak to. And I don't want to talk to bugs or frogs, and they never do anything interesting, and I don't know what tigers are, and wolves and poisonous snakes are pretty dangerous. And they're not seen as the friendly kind of animals that will want to speak to you, and in other nature books I've seen wolves and snakes are always hurting people." Eleanor continued to ramble about frogs and animals as far as he was still talking with Amy. And when we returned to the conversation, Amy had taken a deep sigh and said, "Do you even realize what you're asking?" And he simply shook his fist in response before stepping on the ground twice and drawing a line. Amy looked over his shoulder and over his eyes, and then he started laughing and said, "Fine, you don't need to bite my head off. I was just testing to see if you were serious about your intentions." And he relaxed and also laughed, and Amy turned his back on him to continue with his class. Grenadine too returned to her seat, and he started to walk back to the entrance, and Eleanor followed behind. Once inside, she asked, "Is a scary man going to be my tutor?" "If you want to," answered he, and he added, "If his looks bother you, you can ask him to put on a face more to your liking." And Eleanor frowned and folded her arm, and then she nodded and said, "It wouldn't be fair for him to change the way he looks to please me." "How very generous of you," chuckled he. "Now you're just making fun of me," snapped Eleanor. The pair said nothing for a few minutes, and he looked directly at the sun, and then he looked down and rubbed his eyes. He noticed the shadow he casted before him, and then he said to Eleanor, "It is almost time for lunch." Eleanor started running ahead laughing, and then she said, "Race you." And he ran behind her, and he quickly got up to her, and he passed her. And he had put a yard of distance when Eleanor saw that he had stopped, and he was gazing inside the forest. And she stopped parallel to him and started looking in his direction, and she would have gone to stand beside him, however she hesitated. He then sniffed the air and frowned, and in the end he nodded and he turned to face Eleanor. While walking back home, she asked him, "And what was that all about?" Nothing much," answered he. And then Eleanor said, "Oh, come on, tell me what you saw." "I did not see anything," chuckled he. Not smelling, that was another issue. We sent some of our servants into the forest, and we were too curious to see what he had sent. And the observers looked high and low, and they saw plants, flowers, a deer, some pudgy little dragons, a creepy red eyes, and a blonde maiden sleeping under the shade of a tree, and one of our servants lingered there for a moment, gazing at the girl, and her skin was deathly pale, and her lips looked rosy. and her black hair was a net, and she wore a white nightgown which was covered in leaves. After these peripheral observations, the observer returned to the main group, and we could not find anything that might have given a reason to be on guard. As he returned to the path and they continued back home, Eleanor walked beside him, and from time to time she would look back and gaze at the part of the forest that he had been staring at. And when he was outside of her possible line of sight, she tapped at his shoulder and asked again, "And what do you see in the forest?" "Nothing," repeated he. "Oh, come on, you can tell me. You're not protecting me by hiding things from me," she insisted. "And if you don't tell me what it is, I'll go check it out myself." "Oh, again," whined he, as he struggled to articulate his thoughts. And he got very close to Eleanor, and he buried his head in her neck, and at first Eleanor gasped, but then he started smelling her neck, and that made her giggle slightly. She slightly slapped him away laughing, and then she said, "You smell something funny, and it made you stop, and the dog does the same thing when new people visit it, so what is it that you smell?" And he folded his arm, and he couldn't put his finger on it. "I suppose a new smell is worth checking out," commented Eleanor, continued on her path to the house. As he followed behind her, and by now Mary's thistle was visible over the top mound, and a rusty stone road guided them over towards home. And she was pensive, and by the gaze that he said to Eleanor, "Thinking has never done me any good." "It's not what I expected," said Eleanor, pouting, and she sighed and said, "Frankly, I am relieved." "And you should not believe everything that people tell you," said he, following after her. As he walked through the garden, and Madonna was reading a letter, was sitting on one of the benches of the garden, and the pudgy dragon messenger was flying from flower to flower, and he had a large feather white wings and a mane made of silver. And Kunigunde rose from the fountain and started staring at the little dragon. The dragon also landed on her fountain and started drinking her water, and he too went to the fountain to have a sip. Eleanor sat beside Madonna and asked, "What are you reading?" Without looking up, Madonna answered, "Just some family letters, master." And it took some time for the messenger to deliver my mail, since he did not know my current address. "Anything interesting happened?" asked Eleanor out of bored curiosity. Madonna frowned and folded the letter, and then she said more to herself, "I don't know, my baby sent me a weird drawing. I do not know what to make of it. And the letter that came with it is not too reassuring." His gaze went to the small pile of letters, and he looked at each of them over the top, and then he ate a letter. Madonna pouted her lips but said nothing, and the last letter he looked at was a crude drawing, and the drawing showed the forest covered with butterflies in different colors, and at the center there was a stiff figure of a stylized girl with large moth wings. The drawing also showed lots of blonde stylized figures holding hands, and in one of the trees there was a shadowy figure, and the clouds were color blue, and the sky had smiley faces with freckles. And he handed the drawing to Eleanor, who said, "How cute, the sun has freckles and a face." "Your son does have a face and sunspot freckles," said he. "Most beings cannot see the sun smiling because he glows too brightly." Things are starting to make sense. So he's in Nemorensis, but why would he?" mouthed Madonna below her breath, and she took her tongue to her mouth and started biting her nail. And his ear moved up and down, and he had heard Madonna's whisper. And he turned around when he saw the dog at his cape, and the dog growling while he tugged at his cape, and then he stopped when he saw the corner of his red eyes glowing, and then he looked up and saw a monkey girl in a white kimono. She bowed and said, "Your lunch has been placed in your room outside in the balcony, and Kurt wants to see you after you're done. And Eleanor, Amy's in the tea room, and he can start teaching you anytime you feel like learning." And he nodded in response, and he went to his room, and Eleanor followed beside him. And before sitting down to eat, he went to the bathroom, and he removed his attire, and he took a bath, and he laid his head back, and he looked at the drawings on the roof, and he allowed his red clothes to soak the water. And in the other room, Eleanor was eating her lunch alone, and when she was done, she removed the silver covering which hung over his plate, and then she saw that his meal consisted of random assortments of stones and mineral, and she sat down on his chair and lay back and to look at the stones, and her eyes were drawn to a blue quartz, and she brought it out and looked at it beneath the sunlight. And she said, "I wonder what this stone is called." "It is a blue quartz, my lady," said a voice coming from the veranda, and this voice startled Eleanor, and the voice came from a man resting his head out of the veranda looking down at the gardens, and he was wearing white robes with a golden borders around the edge of a long sleeve, and his robe did not come with a hood, and he was also wrapped in a red cloak, and his jet black hair was long and curly. Eleanor smiled and said, "Oh, hi, Amy. What have you chosen to wear for me?" Oh, said Amy, entering the room, how astute of you, you're surprising. You know what I am, and yet you do not fear me. Not really, I do not know what you are, and ever since I became his wife, I made tons of weirdos. And as he once says, I should not judge a person by their looks, and she would only be condemned for their actions. And I don't know who you are, but he trusts you enough to be my teacher, so I can afford to be civil with you, said Eleanor shockingly. That's the end of that chapter, but